Testimony is going to continue today. This is day 5 of the murder trial for defendant Melody Farris. Prosecutors believe that she fatally shot her husband Gary, then burned his body at their home. This is back in 2018. The defense says Melody couldn't have possibly moved Gary's 300-pound body onto the burn pile, and that no murder weapon was recovered from their property. Let's head back into the courtroom now. We are listening to testimony from the defendant's son. This is Scott Farris.
Good morning, Scott. My name is John Luke Weaver, and I, along with Michael Ray, represent your mother. I want to start, and a lot of this stuff you talked about yesterday, but I do want to talk a long way, and I want to work our way up in time. So you were raised
from Alabama to
your first memory.
My very first memory, I vaguely remember, but yeah, living in Birmingham.
Were you in your, was it?
Yeah, I mean, I was there elementary.
The family is kind of the judge, or the jury, kind of your perspective on everybody. So tell me about your older brother, Chris. What's he like?
Growing up, him and I were, we played a lot of spring ball. So, baseball, we were, then I watched him build the back deck. And
so you tall guys. Now, what position did y'all play?
We played a variety of different positions.
Pitcher?
Played a lot of outfield. I don't really remember when, because we were never on the same team than me. But, I've been...
For the high school teams?
No, I did not play baseball in high school. Once we moved to Georgia, I really didn't want to play any of my friends anymore that I used to play with.
Well,
yeah.
Yes.
We moved to a new town.
Who was better at baseball?
Him and I used to be in our back. I really don't remember, play.
Yeah.
So, if I would have to say, we would probably.
And in Birmingham, that was when you guys, basically through all of your growing up, you guys shared a bedroom, right?
Yeah, 2 twin beds.
Side by side?
Yeah, one on one side of the room.
All right. And that was from your earliest to, I believe, the Hampton Hall neighborhood?
Yes, sir.
And so tell me about that. Did Chris ever get... Somebody had to be. 2 brothers.
Always got in trouble for some, that will stick for sure. But we got boys, all that. So, we were out. Kids did back then.
Old school.
Old school.
Your old dad, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, but of the 2 sons, and I got a mischievous son, but can you say of the 2 of you, the brothers? In trouble more growing up with your dad?
Well, that would probably be Chris, because he was, once we got and he was in high school, we didn't and stuff, so hanging out all the time, like we would when we were younger in Birmingham. We just, we got older. Right now, I'm sister, and they talk every.
Back then, and more trouble than you?
Yeah, I would have to be kind of thing, and he would get in trouble for something completely different. We just had a lot. We had,
But what do you mean by that? Strict rules?
Our parents weren't soft on us. So if we did something wrong, they let us know.
Yeah.
But they weren't as hard on Emily and Amanda as.
All right. So, of the examples, how would they discipline you?
Oh, my dad, he would, fuss at us and, explain what we did wrong, like that. I have more memories of Melody hitting me.
Spanking you?
Spanking me with a belt, eventually upgraded to, I've been hit by spatulas and I've had things thrown at me. I do remember we were living in Birmingham in the girls' room.
That happened wherever, whenever, forever ago.
All right. So the girls, growing up, they were raised a little differently than you and Chris?
Yeah, I mean, they weren't treated like how, Chris and I would. I mean, they're girls. And I mean, there's a difference between girls and boys do get into more mischief than what girls would.
All right. So, kind of, not to say that this is the case, but if you could rank for each parent growing up, who do you think was the favorite and who do you think was maybe the least favorite of the children? So for your mom, we'll start there.
So my mom's point of view, who was the most favorite?
Who was the favorite? Who was the least favorite?
She definitely favored Amanda more. Okay. And then Chris, she favored more. I was middle child, so, Chris was her first baby, and then Amanda was the baby. So
that was her top two.
Yes, from my perspective, yes, those were her top two.
So who would have been the least favorite?
I mean, they never treated us like, any of us were like the outcasts and all, but...
That's not what I'm saying. I'm just, from your perspective as a child.
I just remember, Amanda and Chris kind of got, treated a little bit better than, they got better birthday presents and got more attention in a way. And I'm not saying Emily, didn't get that and all, and I didn't get it because, my dad always made sure that, all of us were treated, kind of equally.
Okay, so on your dad's side of things, who would you say his favorites were?
Both the girls.
A little bit harder on you and Chris?
He was just, he put more discipline on us.
Right. When you use the word old school multiple times. You've been interviewed for this case about 6 times, and you've been testifying now for about 6 hours. And you use the word old school a lot. What did that mean?
Old school is, he never coddled us, He made sure we got out and did yard work and we got our stuff done, I remember growing up, we couldn't go play with our friends until we got our chores done.
He held you accountable.
That would have been Melody more.
Okay, well, I was saying he held you accountable.
He just, he definitely got us involved on, doing stuff like that. So it wasn't, work came, get work done first before play.
And you mentioned that Andrew got a brand new car, and I believe one Silverado.
Yes, black.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, what do you...
I remember coming up, we stayed a lot at the hotel down in Atlanta, to my dad's, law firm. That's where...
Before Atlantic Station was built.
Yes. So it was right there, South Trust building, and so that's where we stayed at while they were looking.
At the hotel.
So we would...
Were you happy about the move?
I wasn't at all. All my friends in Birmingham. My best friend Kyle, single day in the lake that we had. I used to go to with him and his dad. My friends there, my best friends, and I was moving to an area of their friends.
Noted as the brain of the family. Okay. So, how's growing up?
Oh, I was not the best student. Wish I got my dad's brain in school. Just I would get bored or something in my mind, and I graduated class. So, I mean, school wasn't my strong suit. I'm more of a hands-on person.
Okay.
Still with Ross about his life, the favorite child, who was it? He was a middle child. What do you make?
Well, it's just making the bed up. We're going to hear more as it gets more into the flow, and a cross-examination that's criminal to the cross-examiner, rather than press and exacerbate the emotions in the response, well, slow it down. Make it conversational, reduce the threat, de-escalate, build a rapport with the witness so that when it comes to the conversation is so comfortable, scrutiny that the jury's putting, because the jury's just trusting a natural conversation. I think that's where the examiner is going with this, because this is one of the most penultimate witnesses in this defense.
Josh, as a defense attorney, what would you want to be getting at?
Physicality, illustrating as much as possible the relationships and dynamics between this family. We've got several family members. We're going to hear from almost all of them at one point or another. And the state has to tell a consistent story. They have the obligation to put 12 people in the box and have all 12 of them agree on what happened. That's easier when there's really straight facts and a straight story. Every time you introduce a new variable, a statement that could be presented and received one way by one person versus another way by another person, those inconsistencies, that's how you build a reasonable doubt. You're not going to see, I believe, the defense come out and pound on the table about she didn't do it, as much as show the jury there's a lot of other story.
All right, Josh, thank you. Coming up, we're going to have more testimony in the burn pile murder trial for Melody Farris. We're coming right back. You're watching Court TV, your front row seat to justice. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. This is Court TV Live. I'm Kelly Craft, in today for Ted Rollins. Thank you for being with us. We are in Georgia this afternoon for the burn pile murder trial for Melody Farris. The mom of four is accused of fatally shooting her husband, Gary Farris, in the basement of their home and then burning his body in the backyard. Prosecutors say Farris killed her husband, who was a prominent Atlanta attorney for money. Although the defense says she is not the only one who would have benefited financially from his death. Today, the jury has been hearing from Farris's middle son, Scott, who the defense pointed out during their opening statement was the only one with bullets that fit the murder weapon, a .38 caliber gun. Let's get you back into court now for more of Scott Farris's testimony. He's on cross-examination by the defense.
About your grades and how that went growing up?
No, he always helped me. He tried to help me, with homework and, try to improve my school. He was always going over homework with me and, grabbing my textbooks and, helping me out, basically kind of tutoring me.
When you moved to Atlanta, did you have any opportunity to ever meet Angela Phillips?
I've pretty much known of Angela my entire life. That was my dad's legal assistant. So as far as I can remember my dad working for the law firm, she was the legal assistant.
Okay. And when did you find out about the relationship that your dad had with Angela?
I never knew about a relationship with her.
Have you ever heard about it before?
Nope. This is the first time I've ever hearing this.
So you graduated high school, what, about 2000, 2001, somewhere in there?
Yes, sir.
Which one?
2000, well, it was after 9/11 that I graduated, so it was my senior year of 9/11 happened.
So that would be like 2002?
Yes.
Okay. So, and you joined the infantry in, what, 2008, 2009?
Yes, sir. It was, I started out, I went to the recruiting office in the early 2008, I think it was.
Well, let's back up. What did you do between 2002 and about 2008?
So when I was in high school, like I said yesterday, I was on the work program. I worked at Jiffy Lube, so I did oil changes and stuff like that. Once I graduated from high school, then I went and worked for Tires Plus, and then several other mechanic shops. For several years, and then...
So you say several. Why were you changing jobs so much? What?
Trying to make more money and all. Mechanics at mechanic shops is kind of like, barbers and stuff like that. It's rare if one stays at one location for a long period of time. Also, a lot of mechanic shops, they got their master technicians and you can't really go anywhere. So you go in as like a lube tech, which just does oil changes and brake pads and stuff like that. So whenever I found an opportunity to gain, you know, a higher job experience, I would try to take advantage of it and make more money.
Did you ever attempt to go to a trade school or anything like that, get an extra education?
I thought about trying possibly going to linear tech and going into the automotive, but once I got into working on cars and all, I realized you really didn't need it. It's better just hands-on training. You learn more that way. There was a lot of people who worked in that industry that didn't have a degree hanging on the wall that was making decent money.
So it'd be fair to say during those years, and I think I'm taking your words from one of your interviews, that, you know, prior to your military service, you didn't have purpose at that point in your life.
I didn't really have a career job.
Right.
I mean, at that point, no, I didn't have a job that I knew, oh, this is what, I'm going to stay at this company for the rest of my life and retire from here. No. I was still young, you know, really didn't know where I wanted to, which direction I wanted to lean into. So, and at one point I decided I just, you know, instead of working on cars, I went towards selling cars to see how that would be. And so I started selling cars.
Okay. Where were you selling cars?
My first job was at Gossett Volkswagen, right there, kind of Roswell, Alpharetta, off of Mansell Road. We sold Volkswagens and Bentleys. I then left from there and went to Regal Nissan, which is the next exit down Holcomb Bridge. That was more family owned. Loved working there. Did great there, sold a lot of cars, made a lot of money.
About what year was that?
This was around 2005, I want to say, that I was working there. Because when my grandmother had her heart attack, I had to have open heart surgery, I was working there.
And that would have been before you went into the military?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what, about 07, 06, somewhere in there?
Yeah, about in that time frame.
All right. So you were living at home with your parents still, correct?
At that time, yes.
At that time? So from 02 to 08, you lived with your parents, from graduating high school to 08?
No, I did move out for a little while. I lived with some friends and...
Like how long would you say is a little while?
Not even a full year.
Okay. Were you the only one of the four siblings that stayed at home after high school? Now, Chris testified he moved to Maine.
I mean, we all kind of stayed home, you know, came back home a little bit. I think Emily was the only one who really, you know, stay as long under our parents' roof as, you know, the rest of us. But we all kind of, you know, once we graduated high school and we were in and out of the house.
But of those 6 years, you spent 5 of them at home between going to the military and graduating high school.
Yeah, majority of it, yes. I was living under the roof.
So tell me about what was the status of your parents' marriage back then? Actually, what was it like when you were growing up? Was it were they loving?
To me, it seemed like a very happy, normal family. I mean, I don't have any, you know, especially don't have any memories of us living in Birmingham of any conflict whatsoever. And even after we moved to Atlanta or Alpharetta, it was several years and didn't notice anything until I started hearing rumors from kids in the neighborhoods about my parents.
Okay. But prior to that, no issues?
No, not that I remember.
So after high school, you're living at home. Were you noticing any issues, or was it still just normal?
It still kind of seemed normal. I mean, there was nothing that stood out to me.
All right. Did you ever, how about during those years, which one of the parents did you spend the most time with, your mom or your dad?
I mean, obviously it would be my mother because she was a stay-at-home mother, so she was there. My dad was always at the office Monday through Friday. So, but, you know.
Is that when y'all started kind of, it seems like you guys both had an affinity, an affection for yard work and, you know, working with your hands.
Yeah, that's always been, it seemed like my entire life.
So back then even, would you and your mom do stuff like that?
Oh yeah, I mean, we all got out and worked in the yard.
All right. And it sounded like when your grandmother, Miss Walker, had her heart surgery, that you went over there with your mom
Yes.
and stayed for a long time.
Yes, there was quite a period of time that we were up there.
So of the two parents, and I know everybody always gets asked a lot of questions, ask a lot of questions. This is a serious case, so I have to ask a lot of questions. Mm-hmm. But back then, and even through, I would say, 2018, I'm just asking, which one of the two parents did you spend the most time with?
Well, it still would have been her because my dad was working. So I helped her with the situation of my grandmother. So I believe, you know, Emily was in college. Amanda, at the time, I think she was in college too. Chris was doing his thing. So, you know, I was the one that, you know, was really able to help her, you know, with the whole ordeal of my grandmother. So, yeah, I mean, I was around her the most out of the two.
Y'all were close.
Yeah, I mean, we weren't best buddies, but yeah, I mean, she was my mother and I was there to, you know, help her out with everything that was going on.
Right. I mean, you know, you now refer to her exclusively as Melody.
Yes.
And you started doing that in 2019, and you've been doing it ever since. 2019 into 2020. But even when you talk about her past tense, you use the word my mother, talking about her back then.
Yeah, I mean, she acted like a mother. She was my mother. And the reason why I don't like calling her my mother now is because the way she treated me after all this started, and then once it came out that my father was murdered and her actions prior to him being murdered, yeah, I mean, she tore our family apart.
So why did you decide to go into the Army?
So once I noticed things were happening between her and Ted, and that was going on, my father actually told me, you might want to pursue another job, because I was in sales. I sold cars. The recession was coming on, the housing market crashing. He also did bankruptcy as well too. So he kind of said, hey, you might want to find a different job because things are about to get bad. So I knew I've always wanted to serve. I've always been an outdoors guy. I don't obsess over sports like my brother does. I'm more hunting and fishing and going out, being in the woods and everything like that. So I decided that I wanted to go and join the Army and just kind of restart my life over, get away from
That's the
drama.
word, restart. That's the word I think you've used previously.
Yeah, just, I knew going into the Army, I'll be able to, get away from the situation that was starting to brew up.
What was that?
That Melody was having an affair with Ted Wiley.
What does that have to do with your situation starting to brew up? In your life, what does that have to do with your life?
I didn't want to see the drama and turmoil going on between my parents and this, and I had my grandmother in the hospital.
You're telling this jury that you joined the Army because you believed your mother was maybe starting to have an affair with Ted Wiley, and so you're going to join the Army, and it's not because you're bouncing from job to job to job in the mid-2000s and you don't have your own home. It's not, that wouldn't be why you joined the Army?
There's a lot of different factors of the reason why I joined the Army. I mean, the stuff going on between, in my parents' relationship, and then also my dad telling me about, the economy going, and I started to see it. I wasn't selling as many cars and stuff like that, and, I just wanted to, it was my way of kind of going into how someone would go to college. They're getting away from...
Watching the cross-examination of Scott Farris, we are going to squeeze in a quick break, but don't go anywhere. We're coming right back. You're watching Court TV, your front row seat to justice.
Sarah Boone is charged with second-degree murder after her boyfriend suffocated inside of a suitcase.
Sarah, I can't breathe.
I thought he was okay.
The Suitcase Murder Trial. Live coverage starting Monday morning, 8/7 Central on Court TV.
Tell me in your own words and in as much detail as you can, what happened that night?
Now back to Georgia for the burn pile murder trial. Defendant Melody Farris is accused of fatally shooting her husband in July of 2018 and then burning his remains in a burn pit on their property. Let's get you back into court where the jury is hearing from Melody and Gary Farris' son, Scott Farris. Let's go back in.
The family and also I chose, the Army path.
So you were born in 1983.
Yes, sir.
And then you joined in 2008, so that would have made you about 25?
I was about 24 around then.
So a little older than the average person coming into the Army at that point.
Yeah, I mean, when I actually went through basic training, there was actually several people who were older than me, and some the same age, but yes, majority of them were, 19, 20 years old, fresh out of high school.
Sure. And where did you said yesterday where you did your basic? I didn't write that down.
Down at Fort Benning in Columbus, Georgia.
And what was your report day on that?
My report?
Your first day of report. The date.
I don't remember the exact date. I remember my dad dropping me off at the recruiting office, and the recruiters took me by the car and took me down to MEPS down in Atlanta. I don't really remember the exact date.
And you testified yesterday that you actually remembered your mother crying when you were leaving.
That was when they dropped me off at the airport when I was flying back to El Paso to deploy to Iraq within 24 to 48 hours.
And that was in 2009, correct?
Yes.
Right. And your tour in Iraq, do you remember when that started?
It was in April of 2009.
Mm-hmm. How long were you on tour over there?
It was we didn't hit a full exact 12 months, but it was like 10 and a half months or so. Because I came back, I believe it was in May of 2000 I want to say March of 2010. So we were just shy of the year mark. I know we were close enough to the year mark that, we were allowed to put the 2 marks on our dress uniforms of a full year deployment.
Okay. And I've got to ask you some questions about that tour. And I know that I don't like to ask anybody about this, but in this case, you've mentioned some things that you saw. You mentioned that you knew what burned bodies looked like. So I need to know, you referred to yourself as a bullet catcher. So I need to know kind of some idea for this jury what you experienced in Iraq.
So on that deployment, I was part of a specialized group. It's called PSD, Personnel Security Detachment. And we escorted high-ranking officers, any celebrities who came out on the USO tour, because the base I was at, we had a building, the ziggurat is from the Bible, home of Abraham. So anybody who came out to entertain us and all, they wanted to go out and see it, so we would provide security for them. But majority of the time, we were going out and providing security for high-ranking officers, meeting with local leaders in Iraq, and escorting officers from base to base, make sure they were okay. We also escorted EOD and the bomb sniffing dogs, and we did a lot of security for different stuff. We even did prisoner transport. We would go and pick up prisoners off, Chinook helicopters and transport them to the jails that we had. And we just did a wide variety of security, and we also did patrols too as well.
So it would have been during the patrols that you saw the burned bodies?
Yeah, it's a third world country. I've always said to the people here who complain about this country, it's like, go to those countries. It makes you sick on the stuff you see. But yeah, I've seen bodies. I witnessed a dump truck flip over and crush a vehicle with 5 people in it and pancaked it.
Did it flip over because of an IED?
No, it flipped over because we were on a mission. We were transporting some top secret information, and a vehicle came up from behind. So the gunner on the last vehicle, he always pulled the 6 o'clock position. He got whatever was coming up behind. So there was a car coming up. He flagged them to stop or whatever. Well, they got over onto the other side of the road, and so be it. A dump truck was coming up, and they both turned the same direction. The dump truck flipped over and landed right on top of the vehicle, and there was about 4 or 5 occupants in that vehicle, and it pancaked the vehicle. And it happened literally right in front of my truck. I had to slam on the brakes, and it was inches between the front of my truck and the dump truck that flipped over. That's how close it came from us wrecking. And of course, I had to pull around to pull security, and my PC, the guy who sits next to me, he goes, "Do you see anybody alive in there?" And I looked down, and it was a gruesome scene. And I was like, I highly doubt anybody's alive in that. So, we saw stuff like that. You see burning vehicles with people inside them. My platoon got blown up by IED one night. We've been rocketed, mortars coming in. I experienced a lot.
Did you ever have to move any of those bodies?
No.
And in this action, did you have to take any kind of tactical training out in the field, or any tactical movements out in the field, and wherein you actually killed somebody in Iraq?
I can't confirm, that I had somebody in my sights and I saw them go down, but there was some. It's hard to describe. Talk to people who've never been in that situation. So I could say one thing, but y'all could think something different. You're not there. It's not what's on the movies. It's completely different.
And you've experienced some PTSD since that time, correct?
For a while, I didn't like being in crowded places. I just felt uncomfortable. But no, I never really had nightmares and, nothing like that. The only problems I ever had was being in a very crowded area. I didn't like that. I didn't feel comfortable. And also loud noises. If something big fell and made a loud noise, y'all might get scared, but my heart rate goes up a little bit more, because it brings back the time we got blown up. Because after that, it's still to this day, it still does that.
Did you seek any treatment?
No.
Did you ever think maybe you should have?
No, because it never controlled my life. You know, when all that stuff happens, I just, you know, especially like loud noise or something, I just take a couple of deep breaths and just calm down and go about my day. Don't really think about it anymore. Now I've gotten, you know, it's been a long time since I didn't, you know, I feel more comfortable now being in, you know, very crowded areas. That all went away, you know, once I was kind of back home. So.
And that was in 2010, correct? Is when you got back home?
Yeah, I got back from deployment in 2010.
And then you went to Texas after that, right? Or did I get that?
I was still stationed in Texas, so that was where I lived. And like I said, when I was deployed, I re-enlisted. It came up on time for my contract to be, you know, extended. And I took the choice of getting duty station and re-enlisted, and I chose to go to Fort Benning with 3rd ID. That was the unit that was there. And then within a year, it was just a few months after getting back from deployment, I started the process of PCSing to Fort Benning.
Okay, PCS, what does that mean?
Permanent change of duty station.
Okay. Were you planning on doing a career in the military?
Yes, I was.
I think I heard you say that in a previous interview. You were that was the plan.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I probably wouldn't have stayed in the infantry. I would have gone with a different job because it's very hard on your body being in infantry. And I was getting older. So, matter of fact, when I joined the Army, they begged me to be a helicopter mechanic because I scored so high on the ASVABs on the mechanical side, and they were really needing helicopter mechanics. But I didn't want to turn wrenches. I wanted to be infantry. So, you know, I didn't choose that route. So I was thinking about, you know, going into that side once, you know, I came up for re-enlistment again. And then we had a meeting with our first sergeant, and then we had a meeting with our battalion commander, and then it came out that they were going to be releasing a lot of people, and I was one of the people. And on my DD 214, it says reduction in force is the reason why I was separated from the Army.
And you were frustrated by that, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I had a contract. That's what I wanted to do. I had no choice in the matter. You know, I volunteered to join the Army, and then they're just going to let us go. They gave us insurance for 180 days and said, if you got any other issues, just take it up with the VA.
So how long did you hang out in Columbus after being discharged before moving back in with your parents? Because you were married at the time, right? What was her name again?
Gina.
Gina.
I was married, but we were not together. She was living up here in Atlanta. And no, about the time that when I was getting released from the Army, the two guys I lived with, one other one was getting out as well too, and the other guy was being restationed at another base. So we were all moving out, and you know, I was also coming back up home and trying to join Milton Police Department.
What year was that?
That was, you know, 2012. So I had quite a bit of time to the out processing. When you start getting out of the Army, it's not, you know,
right.
You know, one day thing. It's several months. So they prep you for going back in the civilian world and allow you to go and, you know, seek other jobs and stuff like that. So I came up and started the process of joining Milton Police Department, and you know, I did their PT test and I did their written.
Why Milton specifically?
Because I knew the area. I went to Milton High School. I mean, it was my town, my hometown that I grew up and went through school to. So, you know, I was more comfortable doing it there. I wanted to do it there, if anywhere. So I just knew the area. It was my home. So, you know, I was able to provide service, for my country. Now I can provide it for my hometown.
You feel like that was what your life was meant to be, right, Scott?
To serve, yes.
Yeah, to be in service, whether law enforcement, military, that was what you were meant to do.
Yes, I was happy doing that.
Okay.
I enjoyed it.
And why? Why do you think?
Because I've always liked helping people. I mean, look at it. I mean, when you're working on a car, you're helping somebody out. You're helping them fix their vehicle. They don't know. I mean,
Well, that's service. But that's a different type of service.
But
So-
yeah, it's kind of the same thing. I just, like being there for people and help out and, do what I can. I enjoyed it.
Do you think that also you enjoyed people coming to you for help too?
Yeah. I mean,
So-
I have to do as much as I can. If somebody came up to me about
Watching the cross-examination of Scott Farris, we are going to get in a quick break, but don't go anywhere. We're coming right back.
An A-list actor charged in a fatal shooting on a film set.
There is no way for the court to right this wrong.
Victim to Verdict with Ted Rollins. Season finale Sunday night, 8/7 Central.
Only on Court TV.
You saying you can't recall what happened that night. If you were me, would you believe you?
We have been watching testimony play out today in the burn pile murder trial. Defendant Melody Farris faces multiple charges, including malice murder in the death of her husband, Gary, a prominent attorney in the Atlanta area. Investigators say that Melody killed her husband, Gary, and then burned his body on their property. Let's get you back into the courtroom now. On the stand is Melody Farris' son, Scott.
You go to law enforcement for help, right?
Yeah.
That's what. Okay. And did you apply anywhere else?
No, because I started there, and once I got through the one-on-one interviews, so I first did the PT test, then I did the written exam, and once
How'd you do on that?
Well, I passed because they said if you didn't pass, you wouldn't be called in for the one-on-one interview. So obviously I passed. I got called in. It was like another week or two later that I got called in for an interview, and I was in there with them for quite a bit of time. And the gentleman who was walking me out, he made the comment to me, he goes, "You have the GI Bill, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "If you can, try to get your post-certification." I was like, okay. And
So would that mean that the GI Bill would have even paid for your post-certification?
he said that to me. I didn't know if it
Go
would
down to
or
Jit
not.
Stick, which back then was down near Macon.
I don't know where it would have been at.
Okay.
So,
Forsyth? No, they didn't tell you that?
no, sir.
Okay. Go ahead. Just keep telling me about that.
So, he made that comment, and then it was a couple days later, I got a letter. And it pretty much said, thank you for your time and all, but it was along the lines as we don't have the funding to be able to send somebody to the academy. We're more looking for somebody who's already post-certified, but in the future, reach back out and apply again. So that's what I got. And then I started looking at, I went around to Roswell and stuff. I asked police officers there. I was, kind of seeing if it was the same thing. And everywhere I went, they were like, yeah, they're not hiring rookies. They're wanting already people who've already been police officers. And this was, towards the end of the recession. Not a lot of counties had money, and, our economy was not the greatest. Kind of almost what we're in now. But so that's why that got put on hold. And at the same time, we purchased the farm, and
So we'll slow down there real quick. So did you apply to anywhere in Cherokee County? Holly Springs, any of those?
At that time, no. So once we were at the farm, and it was getting to where, things were getting better. I started seeing a lot of commercials about counties hiring and everything like that. I started researching into Cherokee County.
Okay.
And, I was about to put my application in and start the process over again of doing that. and all this started. And then...
All this meaning the barn? Or, I mean, meaning the farm?
No, I'm meaning as my father being murdered.
This guy, okay, so that would have been the gap. Let's go back. I'm back in 2012. You're still living at Hampton Hall, yes?
Well, during that time, I was in the process of out processing from the Army and moving back.
But when you're applying to Milton and all those things, you've moved back in with your parents, correct?
I was still living down at Fort Benning, but I was coming up, staying on the weekends and doing that stuff. But by the time that I was able to, I was finished out processing down at Fort Benning, yes, I moved back home to the Hampton Hall neighborhood.
Okay. And do you remember what, like, specifically time of year that was in 2012?
Kind of a springtime, I want to say. I don't remember the exact date, but it was, you know, if I remember right, somewhere probably around there, spring, summer.
Okay. So speaking of, you know, restarts, you kind of did a restart by going into the military. Tell me, did you ever hear your parents talk about their own restart around that time?
No.
Restarting, and that was kind of why they bought the farm.
So at the time, everything seemed fine. I mean, they seemed like their normal selves again. So I never felt comfortable, you know, talking to either one of them about, you know, the drama that they had between them. But to me, it seemed like everything was back to normal, a happy life. And, you know, they talked about putting the house up for sale and buying the property. And so everything seemed normal to me.
Well, tell me about the purchase of the farm. How did they find it? Why did they get it? What do you know about that?
So, you know, if I remember right, you know, we kind of started looking out at properties around the Milton area. And we looked at several different properties. And
you were going with them?
Yes.
All right.
And we, you know.
Why were you going with them? Had they already determined that you'll be kind of the property manager if they get a property, or
no,
how did that come
not
up?
at that time, no. I was just, you know, there. I was, you know, one of the children who was, you know, I was living back with them and all. And
how were you making a living at the time? Did you have a job?
So at that time, I started working for. I got back into selling cars again. So when the police department thing didn't work out, I went back into selling cars. I worked for Nally Acura out by Dobbins Air Force Base.
Okay.
And I worked there until Nally opened up a Toyota dealership on Highway 9 in Roswell. They remodeled and built a whole new one. So once that opened, I put in a transfer to go from Acura to Nally Toyota, because it was a much shorter drive from Alpharetta to Marietta.
And how long were you there?
It seemed like over a year. So, and my dad they came in and bought the Toyota Sequoia from me. So I was there for a little while.
About when did you start running the farm?
So I left Toyota, and then I started working at the warehouse. Was working there. That was when they decided to sell the house and buy the farm. So I was, you know, working there and in the process of help moving and everything there. So, and then I lost my job probably.
You lost your job in 13?
Around there, yeah.
Right around middle of 13?
We were already on the farm.
Okay.
It already became winter because the snow apocalypse happened.
Okay. So maybe even into 14?
Yes. Yeah, so I do definitely know I was still working for the company when that snowstorm came in and it got so many people stranded on the highways and everything. So I had to help Melody get home from that.
Okay. And so that would have been sometime in 14, and then you lost your job. What happened there?
So They used to have, the company I worked for, they imported furniture pieces from Europe. The company was called Europe to You. So
Wait, I thought you were working at a car place.
No, I left Toyota and started working at the...
I missed that. All right.
Yeah.
Another job at this point.
Yes.
Okay.
So I was working at the warehouse, doing that. So, but there's a building down in downtown Atlanta. It's the marketplace or something. It's where, everybody goes and sells to different companies and all. So everybody has their own studios set up and stuff. Well, they asked me to go, they sent me down there a lot to pick up furniture and stuff like that. And they asked me to go down there, and they told me what, needed to be getting. My manager told me, and I told him, I was like, I need some help because I know that piece I can't pick up by myself. He told me, okay, take such and, I don't remember the guy's name, take him with you. So we go down there. Well, a couple days later, I come into work, and the owners were like, we told you to go down there by yourself. I was like, I never got told to go by myself. I was told to ask, and then I asked, the manager if I'm able to take somebody because there was some furniture I couldn't get by myself. And they're like, well, we didn't authorize that. I was like, well, he did. So, they've already pretty much made up their mind they were going to let me go. And I think it's,
And what you were just doing right there, and I'm sorry, I even got lost a little bit. You were explaining why you got terminated, correct?
Yes.
That's what that was.
Yeah, that's the reason why I lost my job there.
Okay, but you were terminated, and that was your explanation of why.
Yeah, that's the reason
your
why.
opinion.
That was the reason why they told me that I was being let go, is because I wasn't authorized to take that employee with me to help out move the furniture.
Right. And so, was it at that point that your dad basically finally said, "Just come on back, run the farm. You can't hold a job. Come run the farm."
No, he never said that.
He never said that. How'd he say it then?
So
I wasn't there.
After I lost my job, I let my dad know what happened and all. And once again, I sat and talked with my dad. I said, look, I really want to join, the police force. And he knew exactly why I was let go from the Army. And, he knew about the economy and everything. And we came on agreements that I would, manage the farm until people started hiring more in law enforcement.
So let's talk about that agreement. How did that work? I mean, where were y'all sitting on the farm when y'all came up with that agreement?
I don't remember exactly where we were sitting at when we came out. It most likely probably would have been down there by his office, because we would sit out there and talk sometimes.
All right. And were you were living in the barn, or were you living in the house back in 2004?
I never lived in the house. I always lived above the barn.
Right. And had y'all gotten the animals by that point?
At that time, we definitely had the goats. And we started adding on more to the farm. We got our first horse, and then we got...
Was that your idea? Where did these ideas come from? How did we create this farm? Because you guys lived, y'all live in Birmingham for years and years, and you said it was kind of a smaller house, similar to the size that you live in now. Then you moved to Atlanta, or Alpharetta, and then all of a sudden it's this huge house, biggest house you'd ever imagined. Obviously, until you get to the house at Purcell Lane. But how did this come to pass? How did you guys decide to become farmers? I didn't really get a good answer for that yesterday.
My dad wanted something else that he could do more projects on. He ran out of projects at the old house. That's kind of why he wanted it more. I assume, if I remember right, they wanted something different. They wanted something bigger. He deserved it. He worked his tail off, and he could afford it. And he grew up with his grandparents and everybody having cattle. And I remember going to my great grandparents, Mama Parsons, and they had cows and chickens and all that. So, he wasn't opposed to it. Nobody was opposed to it.
Well, nobody was opposed to it, but who really wanted to do it? That's where I'm trying to get you guys to explain that to the jury.
My dad wanted property and I would say, you know, Melody and I, we all like having the animals. My dad didn't really care.
He didn't care about the animals.
He didn't care about, you know, really having all the horses and everything like that.
So it was you and your mother that loved the animals. That was primarily the two people in this family that
yeah,
loved the animals.
that and, you know, my brother's kids, they were excited about the horses, and no, everybody enjoyed the animals.
But the primary care of the animals was you and your mom.
The primary care was me.
Okay, so it was you. You were the primary care. So how much would you say your mother cared for the animals and the property?
I mean, like I said, she would do a little bit, but no, not on a regular, every single day basis. She would get out and feed and
It was you.
and clean stalls and stuff like that. It was me who did all that.
All right. So where did your paychecks go? Where'd you get
I
those?
never got paychecks. I never, you know, like I said earlier, you know, my dad gave me a credit card and he's giving me a debit card, and you know, that's what it. There was no agreement on, you know, oh, you're going to get such and such each.
So you
week
didn't
or
have
month.
a set amount of money that you could live off of?
No, because he knew that I wasn't, you know, I wouldn't go out and try to buy a car or anything, stuff like that. You know, everything that I got was either for the farm or anything, but, you know, I could go out and have lunch, or I could go out, you know, and go play golf with my buddies and, you know, do stuff like that. But, you know, I never really went on vacations anywhere. I didn't do any of that. And, you know.
Like Chris?
Yeah, I mean, for the longest time, I went without ever seeing a beach. I mean, it was, you know, the last time I saw a beach, we went on a beach trip right after I got back from deployment. I was in the process of changing from Fort Bliss to Fort Benning, and we all took a beach trip down the Gulf Shores.
And that's the last time, even to this day, that you've seen the beach?
No, I've seen the beach since then.
Okay. Back during these years?
Yes.
Right. So you would, on a day-to-day basis, if you needed money, you would have to get the credit card from your dad, correct?
Depending if he asked for it back. So
And he would?
Yeah. So, I mean, I had it majority of the time. He gave me a card and said, look, this is all the stuff you know, buy all the feed and everything like that on this, and this is your card. So that's how my paychecks worked. I mean, I was able to pay my cell phone bill, and
you would pay your cell phone bill?
Yeah, with the credit card.
And on the card, did it say, you know, multiple people within a family can have a card, right, on the same account? Did it ever say Scott Farris on the card?
No, it never had my name on it.
Okay. Why not?
Because it was in my dad's name.
Right. Well, let's talk about that. Why do you think your dad never gave you a card in your own name?
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, it's...
He never told you?
No.
Okay.
I didn't care to have one with my own name on it. It never really struck my mind.
Okay. So, and we're going to get into probably this afternoon. I have a number of exhibits and a number of texts and a number of things that we're probably going to talk about today. But I want to know how your dad felt about your spending money. In your words. Because you were at that.
He never had a problem because, like I said, I never went out and did extravagant things.
Well, here's what I'm trying to ask you. You were, in the year 2013, you would have been a 30-year-old man, yes?
Yes.
Right, roughly a 30-year-old man. So you're a 30-year-old man, you're living
All right,
at home.
now we're getting someplace. Defense counsel's trying to find out how Daddy felt about him spending his money. We're going to come back. More of this cross-examination when we come back.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, another day of dramatic testimony in the burn pile murder trial. We'll bring you all of today's key moments as this shocking case unfolds.
Closing Arguments tonight at 8, 7 Central, only on Court TV.
What happened that night? Are you not prepared to take responsibility for any of your crimes?
Interview with a Killer, a Court TV original series. Premieres October 20th, only on Court TV.
Turning to Georgia for our newest trial, the burn pile murder trial. Defendant Melody Farris is accused of fatally shooting her husband in July of 2018 and then burning his remains in a burn pit on their property. Prosecutors say Farris killed Gary Farris, who was a prominent Atlanta attorney for money, although the defense says Farris was not the only one who would have benefited financially from Gary's death. Let's get you back into the courtroom now, where Melody and Gary Farris's son, his name is Scott, he's on cross-examination by the defense.
Your own debit card, even though you're working for the family and you're not getting paid. He keeps taking it back from you. Almost daily, weekly. You have to take it back. His car. Why do you think he kept you on such a financial tight leash?
He didn't keep me on that, and we didn't take it. He anytime that he needed his card is because he needed it for something. So I didn't question on that. So whenever he sent me a text message saying, "Hey, bring me my credit card," I mean, that was the time that he needed it, and I would wind up getting it back either the next day or a couple days later. He'll give it back to me. But no, he never once cut me off from, money.
So text messages that you've seen in this case. I mean, you've had your phone. You've gone through this many times with the district attorney's office. You even, I believe we saw one earlier today where, I mean, he wants you to get other jobs, do other things. Can you talk about that for the jury?
So you're talking about the instance where it showed earlier that it's time for you to pursue another job? Because at that time...
Well, as a matter of fact, Judge, can you switch that back up? It's still pulled up. It's right here. Thanks, Judge. Right here. 2017. I believe it was October 20th. From your dad to you, things will change dramatically. You need to pursue a job soon.
Yeah.
You got to tell me what was going on around that time, Scott.
She was disappearing off to Tennessee. And
what does that have to do with you, Scott?
Judge, I'm Judge. If he asks a question, the witness should be allowed under 611, 623 to answer. He can't cut him off.
Let him finish his answer. Try to stay in the realm of the question. Go ahead.
So that question right there, at that time, there was stuff going on between Melody and Rusty, and my dad was finding out. That's, earlier where you saw on, that the girlfriend of Rusty emailed him and all. That was about the same time period. And that was his way of saying that, he was going to sell the place. I mean, if he was going to file for divorce, he's going to sell the place, and that I needed to find work elsewhere. It wasn't referring to me as, he was putting it on me that I was freeloading off of him. No, that was him saying, "Hey, things are going to change."
Sorry, I'm going to let him answer. Did you feel like you were freeloading off of your dad?
No, because I put in a lot of work for him. I worked my butt off there at the farm, and I didn't ask for money and not do anything for him.
But you didn't really seem to get that much money. I mean, you would take out little amounts of money here and there, $100 here, $100 there to go play golf with Ted and do things like that, but you didn't have stuff. You didn't buy much stuff.
I didn't need it.
Okay. So you don't think it's unusual that you didn't ask for at least, $500 a week, something like that?
No, because everything I did wasn't, required that much money. I mean, I knew that I wasn't, having my own career and all. He was helping me out, and at the same time, I was helping him. So I wasn't going to go and, spend his money and not do work around the farm and help him out. I'm just not that, he raised me that way. So that's...
Old school.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a hard worker. I'm still to this day.
All right. I'm starting with Scott 88. So I'm going to show you some text messages. We can switch back, Judge. What was your phone number at the time?
It should be.
So you can see in these, we use kind of a format that's not as good as the one the district attorney's office uses, but we all got it from them. And so source address, what phone number?
Cell phone.
That was your dad's cell phone. All right, so I've got a text message here that looks like it was on 2018, 6/29. What does it say?
The very top one?
Very top one.
Bring me the credit card.
All right. Then kind of working back in time, what does the next one say?
Come down here?
All right, who's it? Is it from your dad to you?
Yes.
All right, what would that have meant? Do you have any idea?
So that would have mean I was upstairs in my apartment. He pulled up to the barn and so he was texting me for it to come down.
Right, so this message right here, the next one, which is about 5 days before, 6/12. The 9032, that's your dad, and that's to you. And what does it say?
The credit card better be in my wallet before I leave tomorrow.
All right. Then, I think earlier that day, what does the next message say?
Bring me the credit card now.
All right. And then what does the next one say?
I grabbed the credit card because I needed to get Luke and Leroy flea stuff from the vet today.
All right. So that would have meant this is earlier, this is about a week before, I guess. 6/7, it looks like it says, of 2018. But you had to tell him what you would spend money on, yes?
Yeah, I mean, in that instance, I told him why I was grabbing the credit card to go buy flea stuff for him. I always let my dad know what I was spending his money on.
Right, and it was in his wallet. That was where the credit card went.
Depending on the time, yeah.
Right,
if I didn't have it, he had it, and it would have been in his wallet.
Right, so what I'm saying is if this is your dad's wallet, wherever it was in the house, which you seem to act like you knew where it was. It was always in one of two places, is what you would say, right? In a car or on the dresser?
No, I never said it was in the car. I never once found my dad's, I never had to go get my dad's wallet out of his car. It was always on the dresser in the master bedroom.
It would never be downstairs with him?
I mean, it could have been if he was down in the office working.
We're going to bring in our guest this hour to discuss what we have seen with this cross-examination of Scott. National Trial Attorney Michael Jaffer. Michael, thank you so much for joining us on this Friday. I can't wait to hear what you have to say about this case and this cross-examination. Finally getting into something here, this defense attorney saying and talking to him about you were spending your dad's money.
This is everything. I was riveted in the last 3-4 minutes. First of all, let me just say, I don't like the way that this defense attorney is following in terms of his emotion, in terms of his cadences. I think he's being too aggressive. With that being said, he's hitting some points, because at the beginning of Scott's testimony, he was very adamant. My dad didn't care. I was not a freeloader. I earned the money. My dad, he even had a sentence where he said, I mean, sometimes he'd ask for it. I'd give it to him 2 days later. Sometimes he wouldn't care. Right now, you're getting direct text messages from the horse's mouth that, I need my card now. I need it in my wallet by the end. So he is breaking down some of the goodwill that Scott earned on direct examination. With that being said, I'm struck by the Greek tragedy nature of this and what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a son on the stand testifying against his mom for murdering his father, where she accused him of murdering his father, and he looks just like her. He literally is a carbon copy spitting image of her. I don't think I've ever seen that before. But with that being said, I'm sure the jury is seeing that as well. And this right now, I mean, up until the last 3 minutes, this Scott Farris was a very, very credible, sympathetic person. He's kind of looking like a little bit of a liar to me at this point. I still don't like the way the defense attorney, just his cadences in this cross-examination, but he is hitting points. Now I know what he was thinking about. It's like, you're burying yourself, no pun intended, Scott, because later on I'm going to bring up text messages that directly contradict the exact relationship that you said that you and your dad had. You did not have the relationship you want the jury to believe you had. You did not have the relationship where he just didn't care and gave you a card, spend whatever you want, go golf with your buddies. That's not what you had. From your dad's mouth. He's telling you specifically, I need my, he's demanding it, and you are a freeloader. And I know in his closing arguments, the defense attorney is going to say, you can't believe anything he said. His dad was not, he did have a motive, and his motive was to get his dad out of the way. And by the way, he's just as big as his dad. He had the same access to his dad that his mom had. But the difference is his mom's weighs $130, you know, soaking wet. She can't carry, she's not going to be able to move Gary Farris, but his son could.
Yeah.
And his son worked on the farm, and he was a strong farm boy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's getting interesting to say the least. All right, Michael, thank you so much for your insight.